the girl who fought cancer and won her dream. A motivational story. Chapter 1, The Unexpected News. Zara was a 16-year-old girl with big dreams. She wanted to become a doctor and help people. She loved studying and always topped her class. Her parents were proud of her, and her teachers admired her dedication. Everything in her life seemed perfect until one day, she started feeling weak and exhausted. At first, she thought it was just stress from studying too much. But when she noticed bruises on her body without any reason, her mother took her to the hospital. After several tests, the doctor called Zara's parents into his office. Zara sat outside, waiting nervously. She could hear her mother crying. When they finally came out, their faces were pale. Her father sat beside her and took her hand. "Zara, my dear, the doctors have found something in your blood. You have leukemia," he said, his voice breaking. Zara's heart sank. She had heard about cancer before, but she never thought it could happen to her. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she wiped them away. "What do we do now?" she asked bravely. Her mother hugged her tightly. "We will fight this together, my love," she whispered. That night, Zara lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She had always been strong, but this was different. She was scared. Would she lose her dreams? Would she ever be able to study again? But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "You are not giving up, Zara. You will fight, and you will win." Chapter 2, The First Step in the Battle. The next morning, Zara woke up determined. She knew that leukemia was a tough battle, but she was not ready to surrender. Her parents took her to the hospital, where the doctor explained the treatment plan. She would need chemotherapy, which might make her weak, but it was the only way to fight the disease. Zara nodded. "I am ready," she said firmly. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she couldn't afford to lose hope. Her mother held her hand tightly, silently praying for her strength. The first round of chemotherapy was exhausting. The medicines made her feel dizzy, and she could barely eat. As the days passed, her hair started falling out. Looking at herself in the mirror, she felt a wave of sadness. She touched her head gently and whispered, "It's just hair. It will grow back. But my dreams, I cannot let them die." One day, her best friend Aisha visited her in the hospital. "Zara, I brought something for you," she said, handing her a notebook and a pen. "Write about your journey. Let your words give you strength." Zara smiled and opened the notebook. As she wrote the first words, she felt a spark inside her. She was not just a patient, she was a warrior. Chapter 3, The Pain and the Promise. The treatment became harder with each passing week. Zara's body felt weak, but her heart remained strong. Some days, she could barely lift her head. The pain was unbearable, but she reminded herself why she was fighting. She had a dream, to become a doctor and help others who were suffering like her. One evening, as she lay in her hospital bed, she saw a little boy in the next room. He was also battling cancer, but unlike her, he looked terrified. Zara took a deep breath, gathered her strength, and walked to his bed. "Hi, my name is Zara," she said, smiling despite her weakness. The boy looked at her with sad eyes. "I'm Ahmed. I'm scared." Zara sat beside him and held his tiny hand. "I'm scared too, Ahmed. But you know what? We are fighters. We are stronger than cancer." Ahmed wiped his tears and nodded. That day, Zara realized something important. Her battle was not just for herself, it was for everyone who needed hope. She made a promise to herself, no matter how hard it got, she would not give up. Chapter 4, The Power of Dreams. Months passed, and Zara continued her treatment. Some days were harder than others, but she never stopped studying. Even in the hospital, she asked her teachers to send her notes. She read her books, solved math problems, and wrote essays. One day, a nurse saw her studying and asked, "Zara, why are you pushing yourself so hard?" Zara smiled. Because I have a dream. Cancer can take my strength, my hair, even my comfort, but it will never take my dream. Her words spread throughout the hospital. Patients, doctors, and nurses admired her courage. She became an inspiration to many. Even on her weakest days, she kept going. Then, one morning, the doctor walked in with a big smile. "Zara, your latest tests show great improvement. You are winning this fight." Tears of happiness filled her eyes. She had fought with all her strength, and now, she was closer to victory. Chapter 5: A Light in the Darkness. Zara's journey was still long, but hearing that she was improving gave her new energy. She continued her treatment with even more determination. Though the chemotherapy made her weak, she kept smiling. She believed that every day she fought was one step closer to her dream. One night, she saw her mother crying silently in the corner of the hospital room. Zara's heart ached. She knew how much her parents were suffering with her. She took her mother's hand and said, "Ami, don't cry. I will get better. I promise." Her mother kissed her forehead. "I believe you, my love. You are my brave girl." Zara smiled, feeling stronger. She realized that her battle was not just hers, it was her family's, too. She had to stay strong for them, just like they were staying strong for her. Chapter 6: The Mirror of Strength. One morning, as Zara brushed her teeth, she glanced at the mirror. Her face looked pale, and her head was now completely bald. She touched her smooth scalp and sighed. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I am still the same Zara. Cancer cannot change who I am." Deciding to embrace her new look, she tied a colorful scarf around her head. When she walked out, her father smiled. "You look beautiful, my princess." For the first time in weeks, she laughed. "I know," she said confidently. That day, Zara learned an important lesson. True beauty was not in her hair or her appearance, it was in her strength and courage. Chapter 7: A Letter to the Future. One afternoon, Zara picked up the notebook Aisha had given her. She opened a fresh page and wrote, "Dear future Zara, I know you are reading this one day when you are strong and healthy. I hope you remember how hard you fought. I hope you remember the nights you cried but still smiled in the morning. And most of all, I hope you never forget your dream, to become a doctor and help others like you. Never give up. With love. Your past self, Zara." As she finished the letter, a tear rolled down her cheek. But this time, it was not a tear of sadness. It was a tear of hope. Chapter 8: The Final Battle Begins. Zara's treatment was reaching its final stages. The doctors had told her that if her next test results were good, she might be able to go home soon. Her heart filled with hope. On the day of the test, she held her mother's hand tightly. "Whatever happens, I will stay strong," she whispered. Hours later, the doctor entered her room with a wide smile. "Zara, your results are amazing. The cancer is almost gone." Zara gasped. "Really?" Her father hugged her tightly. "Yes, Beta. You did it." Tears of joy filled her eyes. She had fought the hardest battle of her life, and she was winning. Chapter 9: Returning Home. The day Zara had been waiting for finally arrived. She was going home. As she stepped out of the hospital, the fresh air felt different, almost magical. She had spent months in a room filled with medicines, doctors, and pain. But now, she was stepping into a new chapter of her life. Her neighbors and friends welcomed her warmly. Aisha ran to hug her. "I missed you so much, Zara." Zara smiled. "I missed you too. But I am back, and I have so much to do." She looked at her house with new eyes. Everything felt special now, the simple walls, the smell of her mother's cooking, the sound of her father's laughter. She had survived the darkest storm, and now, she was ready to chase her dreams again. Chapter 10: Back to Studies. Even though she was still weak, Zara wasted no time. She picked up her books and began studying again. She had missed months of school, but she refused to fall behind. Her father watched her with pride. "You just came back from the hospital, Beta. Don't push yourself too hard." Zara shook her head. "I fought cancer, Baba. I can fight anything." She studied day and night, determined to catch up. At first, it was difficult. Her mind felt slower than before, and sometimes she felt tired easily. But she reminded herself, "I didn't fight this hard to give up now." One evening, she received a call from her school principal. "Zara, we have heard about your journey. You are an inspiration to all of us. If you are ready, you can sit for your final exams." Zara's heart raced. "I am ready," she said confidently. Chapter 11: The Exam Hall. The day of the exam arrived. Zara entered the hall, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She looked around and saw her classmates, who were shocked to see her. One of them whispered, "She had cancer, and now she's here." Zara ignored the whispers and focused on her paper. As she picked up her pen, she smiled. "I am not just here, I am here to win." She answered every question with confidence. Every word she wrote felt like proof of her strength. She was no longer just a survivor, she was a fighter who refused to let anything stop her. When she submitted her paper, she took a deep breath. She had done her best, and that was all that mattered. Chapter 12: The Results. Weeks later, Zara sat in her room, waiting for her exam results. Her hands were shaking, but her heart was hopeful. She had worked hard. She had fought not just cancer but also fear, pain, and self-doubt. Her father opened the website and gasped. "Zara, you topped your class." Tears filled her eyes. She couldn't believe it. After everything she had been through, she had not just passed, she had excelled. Aisha called, screaming with happiness. "Zara! You did it! You are amazing!" Zara wiped her tears and smiled. "No, Aisha. We did it. Because of the love, prayers, and support of my family and friends, I never lost hope." She looked at her notebook, where she had once written a letter to her future self. She whispered, "I kept my promise, future Zara. I never gave up." Chapter 13: A New Beginning. Zara's success in her exams gave her new confidence. She had proven to herself and the world that no challenge was big enough to crush her dreams. But she knew her journey wasn't over yet, her biggest dream was still waiting. One evening, as she sat with her parents, she said, "Ami, Baba, I want to apply for medical school." Her father looked at her proudly. "Are you sure, Beta? It's a long and difficult path." Zara nodded firmly. "I have already fought the hardest battle of my life. Nothing can stop me now." Her mother wiped her tears. "We believe in you, my love. Go and chase your dream." With her parents' support, Zara started preparing for the medical entrance exam. It was challenging, but every time she felt tired, she reminded herself why she started. Chapter 14: Facing the World. Returning to a normal life after cancer wasn't easy. Some people looked at Zara with sympathy, while others whispered behind her back. One day, a girl from her class said, "I don't think she can handle medical school. She's still weak." Zara overheard the words, but instead of getting upset, she smiled. "They don't know how strong I am." She worked harder than ever, proving to herself that she was not just a survivor, she was unstoppable. She attended coaching classes, stayed up late studying, and never let negativity break her spirit. Aisha encouraged her every step of the way. "Zara, you inspire me every day. If anyone deserves to become a doctor, it's you." Zara smiled. "I don't just want to be a doctor, Aisha. I want to help kids like Ahmed, who are scared of cancer. I want to give them hope." Chapter 15: The Medical Entrance Exam. The day of the entrance exam arrived. Zara walked into the hall, her heart beating fast. She took a deep breath and reminded herself, "I have fought cancer. I can do this." The paper was difficult, but Zara stayed calm. She answered each question with confidence, knowing she had prepared well. When she submitted the exam, she closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. Days turned into weeks, and finally, the results were announced. Zara hesitated before checking her score, afraid of what she might see. Her father sat beside her and said, "No matter what the result is, we are proud of you." With shaking hands, she opened the website. Then, she gasped. "I did it! I got in!" Her mother hugged her tightly. "Moshe Allah! My daughter is going to be a doctor?" Zara couldn't believe it. She had faced death, fought her fears, and now, she was on the path to fulfilling her biggest dream. Chapter 16, The First Day of Medical School. Stepping into medical school was a surreal moment for Zara. She wore her white coat for the first time and looked at herself in the mirror. "This is real. I made it." As she walked into her first class, she felt nervous but excited. She met new classmates, some of whom had heard her story. One student said, "You're the girl who survived cancer, right?" "That's incredible." Zara smiled. "Yes, but I'm also just a girl who never gave up on her dreams." Her professors admired her dedication, and soon, she became one of the best students in her batch. Every time she walked into the hospital for practical lessons, she felt a deep sense of purpose. She wasn't just studying medicine, she was preparing to save lives. Chapter 17, A Doctor in the Making. Medical school was tough, but Zara was tougher. The long hours, endless studying, and intense practical work tested her patience and strength. But every time she felt exhausted, she reminded herself why she was here. One day, during a lecture, the professor asked, "Why do you want to be a doctor?" Different students gave different answers: money, prestige, family legacy. But when it was Zara's turn, she stood up and said, "Because I was once the patient. I know the fear, the pain, and the helplessness. And I want to be the person who gives others hope, just like my doctors gave me." The classroom fell silent for a moment, then the professor smiled. That is the heart of a true doctor. Zara felt a deep warmth inside her. She wasn't just learning medicine, she was preparing to give back to the world. Chapter 18, The First Patient. During her hospital rotations, Zara met a little girl named Noor, who had just been diagnosed with leukemia. Noor was scared, just like Zara had been. Zara sat beside her and held her hand. "You remind me of someone very special." Noor looked up. "Who?" Zara smiled. "Me, when I was your age. I had cancer too, but I fought, and I won. And you will too." Noor's eyes widened. "Really? You had cancer?" "Yes," Zara said softly. "And now, I'm here to help kids like you. You are stronger than you think, Noor." That day, Zara realized something: medicine wasn't just about treating bodies, it was about healing hearts. Chapter 19, The Unexpected Setback. Just when everything seemed perfect, Zara's health started to decline. She began feeling weaker, often getting dizzy during rounds. At first, she ignored it, but one day, she collapsed in the hospital hallway. When she woke up, she saw her parents and doctors standing around her. Fear gripped her heart. Her doctor sighed. "Zara, your body is still recovering from the years of treatment. You need rest." Zara felt frustrated. "But I can't stop now. I've come so far." Her father held her hand. "Beta, strength is not just about pushing forward. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to pause." Tears welled up in her eyes. She had fought so hard, and now she had to slow down? It felt unfair. But deep inside, she knew her father was right. Chapter 20, Learning to Balance. Zara took a short break to recover, focusing on her health while continuing her studies at a slower pace. It wasn't easy. She hated feeling weak again. But something beautiful happened: she started listening to her body, taking care of herself the way she took care of others. She learned that self-care wasn't selfish, it was necessary. Aisha visited her one evening and said, "You know, even warriors need to rest between battles." Zara smiled. "I guess you're right. And when I come back, I'll be stronger than ever." Her recovery was slow, but this time, she didn't rush. She allowed herself to heal, knowing that her dream was still waiting for her. Chapter 21, Rising Again. After weeks of rest, Zara was finally strong enough to return to her medical studies. This time, she was more careful with her health, balancing work and self-care. Her professors welcomed her back warmly. "You are an inspiration to all of us, Zara," one of them said. "Not just because you survived cancer, but because you never gave up." Zara smiled. She had learned that strength wasn't about never falling, it was about always getting back up. As she walked into the hospital ward again, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was not just a medical student, she was a survivor who would one day save lives. Chapter 22, The Final Year. Time passed quickly, and soon, Zara was in her final year of medical school. The days were long, and the nights were even longer, but she loved every moment of it. She spent hours in the hospital, learning from experienced doctors, treating patients, and handling emergencies. One evening, a senior doctor said, "Zara, you have a special gift. You don't just treat patients, you give them hope." Zara felt her heart swell with pride. This was what she had always wanted, to be more than just a doctor. To be someone who made a difference. Chapter 23, The Graduation Day. The day Zara had dreamed of finally arrived, her graduation. As she put on her white coat and held her degree in her hands, she felt tears in her eyes. She had fought cancer, survived pain, and faced every obstacle, yet here she was, a doctor. Her parents hugged her tightly. "We always knew you would do it, Beta," her father said. Aisha cheered, "Dr. Zara. That sounds amazing." Zara laughed. "Yes, it does." But deep inside, she knew this was just the beginning. Chapter 24, The Dream Comes True. Zara started working in the oncology department, where she treated young cancer patients. Every time she looked into their scared eyes, she saw her younger self. One day, a little boy asked her, "Doctor, will I be okay?" Zara held his hand and said, "Yes, you will. Because you are stronger than you think." She had come full circle, from being a patient to being the doctor who gave hope. Her journey had not been easy, but every struggle had made her who she was today. Chapter 25, A Message to the World. Zara's story spread far and wide. People were inspired by the girl who had fought cancer and won not just her life, but also her dreams. One day, she was invited to give a speech at a medical conference. Standing on the stage, she looked at the audience and said, "If you are struggling, if you feel like giving up, don't. Life will test you, break you, and push you to your limits. But you are stronger than you know. Keep fighting, keep believing, and never stop chasing your dreams. If I can do it, so can you." The crowd erupted in applause, and Zara smiled. She had won her battle. But more than that, she had become the light for others who were still fighting theirs. And that, she knew, was the greatest victory of all. The end.